I am super excited about part 2 of our conversation with Tabatha Thorell. If you missed the first one about how it's we have to lead ourselves first. I totally just forgot the title of what we just talked about. Leadership starts with you. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about a different perspective than I think many parents take, that it's about servanthood in leadership. And I can hear with sarcasm in the background, yeah, I'm my kid's servants. Tell me something I didn't already know.
Right. Yes. It's
So
more than
I
just picking up the socks, right?
right, picking up the socks, throwing them in the hamper, which is next to where the socks landed, right?
Of course. Yes, of course.
So talk to me a little bit about this perspective with servanthood, or the perspective of servanthood and leadership, specific to having these aliens that we call teenagers.
Well, here's the thing. It's not that I think that parents, especially women, I mean, no diss to men, that we put our kids first. Like
Mhm.
that is not what this title is. This is not like, you're not, because I can hear it too. Some women are like, my kids are everything. I put everything first. I put myself last and all this stuff.
Sure.
What I mean by servanthood is, especially when we're talking tweens and teens, is there's a lot of emotion going on. Like
Mhm.
pre-puberty and puberty, emotions runs high. I have
Right.
5 daughters, so there's a lot of emotion going on in our household. And a lot of times I think what happens is we're raising these humans and they're babies and they're cute and they're cuddly and we're holding them and nursing them and they want to be around you and they want to hold your hand and read stories with you. And then we get to the stage where they don't want that. And
Mhm.
we're like, what? But I put myself last for you, right? Like we come off as that. And I'm speaking to myself, ladies. So like hear me when I say this. This is a no judgment conversation. This is literally, I had to look in the mirror and say, what is wrong here? Because it was like, going against a brick wall. And I didn't want a relationship with my daughters because I can't even tell you how many times, and still to this day, people, when I tell them I have 5 daughters, they say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, that must be so hard for you. Oh my gosh, that must be so hard for your husband. Ooh, can't wait for the teen years. Like all this negative stuff. And here's
Mhm.
the reality. Yes, there's emotion. Of course, their bodies are changing. Their hormones are coming on like crazy trains, right? And now you add social media and the
Mhm.
pressures of being beautiful all the time, makeup, hair, body, image, all of that stuff. Of course, there's going to be emotion. Like, try
Mhm.
to have it removed from that. And I think boys or girls, because I have seriously need to do the math, like 35 nieces and nephews. So I have been exposed around boys. It's different. Like there's different
Mhm.
expectations, there's different things. But with that emotion, whether it's a boy you're raising or a girl, they get to the stage where they no longer need you. You're
Right.
no longer their best friend. My
Right.
daughter literally on Friday just chose to on a date with her boyfriend over going out on a date with her dad. And it just kind of hit him like, oh no, like I'm not the most important one. And so
Yeah.
it's really easy to get wrapped up in the emotion of that, of like, oh, wait a second. And then when they're snippy at us or they do something that isn't appropriate, it is disrespectful. It
Mhm.
almost allows us permission to be like offended, like, well, you were disrespectful and you don't get to do that. I'm going to take your phone away. And in all reality, was it the comment? Was it the disrespectfulness? Or was it our feelings that were hurting right now?
Mhm.
And we can't go to them and be like, honey, you hurt my feelings. Like we have to
Mhm.
check ourselves. And so when I'm talking about servanthood, it's really servanthood in our emotions and in our offense of taking a step back and saying, okay, am I putting my identity, my full identity of myself into
Sure.
my child? Have
Right.
I spent the last 10, 15 years pouring into them and all of a sudden they don't need me? And in reality, they do. They just need you differently. And that's where
Right.
this servanthood is coming back. And by being a servanthood, if there's any believers out there, I refer to this, but it's like, when Jesus spoke to his disciples, it wasn't that he did everything for them. He
Sure.
did. He gave them wisdom. He showed them things. When he washed their feet, it was a sign of, I am just like you. I'm humble like you.
Mhm.
you saw me up here and I'm literally like you. So it's doing things for them at that level that, for instance, my daughters have been doing their own laundry since they were 10. But as a mom, if they need something done, I'm like, yeah, sure, I got you.
Mhm.
I'm showing them those things of like, okay, like you still need me and I'm still here for you. But again, this isn't going to be coming like you're still in charge of your laundry, right?
Right.
So it's just like those little prefaces of it. But really, what I'm talking about it is really taking ourselves, our ego. And that's what I mean by that is like our
Sure.
ego and saying, if I didn't need them to give me validation that I'm a good mom, because you
Mhm.
may not get that for
Right.
teenagers. So you're going to have to get that somewhere else, right? You and your spouse are going to have a conversation, but like, don't put all your validity in their behavior and saying, I'm still going to continue doing what I know is best for them, no matter what their response, no matter how
Mhm.
disrespectful they are. I am not going to get wrapped up in that emotion and that battle of offense, defense. Oh, I'm offended by what they said and did. Because
Sure.
honestly, they have not put that much thought into it. I guarantee that they just responded in a way, first of all, that neurologically they can respond. And
Sure.
that's when we train them and we move on forward with that. So that's
Well,
really what I mean in that.
and that right there parallels a thought where people are like, "Oh, that other driver is just trying to be a jerk. Like he deliberately cut me off." And it's like, "No, really? Like
Right.
that's awfully egocentric. That's making it all about you."
Yep.
I'm willing to bet that that other driver has 1,010 other things on their mind
Yep.
before intentionally cutting you off and being a jerk to you.
Right.
Like it's not
Yes.
all about you.
Right. And it's just looking at it in a perception. You can look at it in this negative way that everybody's against you, or you can look at it in a way that everybody's for you. And
Right.
so with my kids, I really truly don't think that my daughters are ever doing anything deliberately to hurt me. Like, I really don't. And you might have a relationship with your kid and you're like, you don't know my kid, like, whatever.
Sure.
Okay. If that's true, there's a root cause. There
Mhm.
is a root cause because like I've done so much research and studies on even people who are abusive to their kids, like physically, mentally, sexually abusive, and that kid still tries to get that parent's love and connection and admiration. So I
And
guarantee you a
validation.
healthy relationship with your kid, they aren't truly
Sure.
trying to hurt you. They've
Sure.
got other stuff. And this prefaces to the servanthood. Know your kids. And what I mean by that is know their favorite color, know their favorite food. And that might change. My daughter's color changes like every other Friday, I swear. But it's like listening to them, it's knowing them, their personality styles, their love language. How do they receive love? What makes them tick? What right now is their thing that literally lights them up? And you might say, Tab, I try to ask them and they say, I don't know, I don't care. Okay, it's social media. So go on their social media if you have it and like just do a little thing, because
Mhm.
when you understand them, they will connect with you and they will
Sure.
feel love. Whether they show it right in that moment or not, they're going to, they are going to receive that and move forward in all of the emotions that they got going on. My
Yeah.
middle daughter, when stuff doesn't go right at school, when there's a lot of heaviness, she comes home and she takes it out on her older sisters. And I know, I'm like, this isn't like you, like what's going on? And at first she's like, nothing, I'm fine. And pretty soon it's like, and I don't push it right away, but then at bedtime, I'm like, okay, do we need to have our cover time and put your face over the cover and tell me what's going on? And usually she's like, no, I'll just tell. And then it all comes out. Right. But if I just said, oh, well, she said nothing's going on, she's just being a brat. Is that serving her or me?
Sure.
No, because we're you doing that. So it's that servanthood of, I am going to serve them in a way of like being a detective and like, what is really going on with them? How can I really find out without being, of course, I'm not saying like read their diary and like invade on their
Sure.
space, but like at the same time, if you think something's going on, I'm not above reading my daughter's diary. I'm just going to put that out there because here's the thing. I need to be equipped to be that lighthouse, that stable rock in their life. And if I don't know what's going on, how can I withstand that? And a friend of
Right.
mine, I asked her, I said, her daughter's kind of like our sixth daughter. She's always at our house. We call her Safe. She's really fun. And I said, hey, I said, what's her favorite color? And her mom goes, well, I don't know. And I'm like, not even a guess. Like, well, she used to like this guy. It was just like, well, I don't know. And I thought that was astounding because she's a very good mom. Like that's the thing that shocked me is she's a very involved parent. Like she's at all the stuff. And so it's just little things like that that I feel like as a parent that we can do and make it, just that it deepens that relationship, that
Sure.
connection with them.
Well, and it strikes me when you're talking servanthood, it's not necessarily servanthood of the child, but behaving and showing up in a way that is in service of that long-term relationship that you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Of like, what's the behavior? How can I show up in this in a way that is going to serve the long-term relationship that I want with my kiddo well past the teen years?
Exactly. It's like who do I need to be in order to be, to have that relationship? Like,
Mhm.
how do I need to grow? We're humans. We like to grow. We like to learn, whether, you say, oh, I hated school. No, but like our souls like to grow and learn. And so
Sure.
it's like, who do I need to be in order to be the mom now, but also in the future and cultivate that relationship?
Sure,
And
yeah.
a lot of times, because for me, I came from a family, I was the youngest of five. And so my voice, I had to be really loud. And I always, in my family, it's all about who's right, like, oh, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And I had to ask myself, and a mentor told me this, she said, it's not about being right. It's really not. If you want to be right, then you're going to ruin pretty much all relationships, but especially
Mhm.
with your kids.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean that you say, because then I see the flip side of this and I see parents that are like, oh, okay, honey, yeah, you can have whatever you want. Yes, yep, I want to, and they like lower themselves. It's not about that. It's about, again, it's showing them through stories, through wisdom, through
Sure.
experience, and then saying, but you have a choice. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you really do have a choice. But if you choose this is the consequence. And if
Mhm.
you choose this is the reward. So
Mhm.
ultimately, I'm not domineering. Now my toddlers are different. They can't run into the street because their repercussion is death, okay? But
Right.
when
Oh, absolutely.
but when I'm teaching my teenager, if you choose to not do your chores, you get your phone taken away for a whole day. But if you do your chores, then we get to have family time, or you can go downstairs while we, do some stuff or whatever, like whatever the
Mhm.
reward is. And so it's
Mhm.
teaching and training them up and showing them those things. But it's not about me being right. It's about me showing them the truth and then separating myself from it because I'm a
Right.
female like everybody else. And my daughter, I never thought I'd see the day where she just like, chose those things, but I knew it would happen. But she just loved to be around family so much that I just prayed like, oh no, she's always going to choose us. And she does for the most part, but there have been moments now that she's almost 15 and she's choosing friends and boyfriend, and that's
Mhm.
normal. But I've
Yes.
never had that before. She's my
Mhm.
first teenager. So I also have to allow myself forgiveness and allow myself to be, humbled in that and saying, you know what, this is normal. It is fine. And, we're no exception to the rule and, all of those things and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, and that leads me to another point that I know you wanted to talk about relative to value.
Mhm.
And we talked about this during the part 1 that on the podcast and our main Facebook group of not putting your whole identity into your child. And speaking as the kiddo who feels that her mom did put her entire identity into me. Now, my mom has passed 4 years ago, so I can't go ask her this at this point. But I very much felt like her and at least the vast majority of her identity was about me
Right.
and raising me to be the best human that I could be, which I'm deeply grateful for. But
Right.
then it was like, okay, but if I don't need you in the same way, like who then are you as a human, as a woman, as a wife, as a musician in her case? So I like the fact that you made the point about it's not about your value, quote unquote, as your identity through your kids, but about the value that you can add. But I think it's worth saying, and I'm guessing that you would agree that like each of us has intrinsic value as humans, period, end of story. We don't get that validation from our kids.
Right. I mean, if you're expecting anyone to validate who you are,
Hmm.
you're going to be living a really strugglesome life because I feel like that's the me centered. That's the,
Hmm.
oh, it's all about me type of thing.
Hmm.
And here's the thing. When I married my husband, I knew that I wanted kids and I wanted to be the predominant voice. So like I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But prior to that in high school, I remember thinking like I want to impact the world. Like I always wanted to help people and like
Mhm.
have a career in some way or shape or form. I just pictured like I just strap my kids on and I'd go do it, together. Like I was just that type of person, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. So it's like, even as like I had my first daughter, I was constantly like, I was fitness training and instructing. And then I was like, ooh, what kind of side hustle can I do while she's napping? Like, what else can I learn so that I can teach other people? Because I feel like
Mhm.
knowledge is power when you can, and butterfly effect, and stuff. So
Right.
like that was just my need, and I have a high significant strength. And it's a strength because in order for me to be significant, I have to bring high value to other people.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of times what happens is, especially like high achievers, if you become a mom and then you're a stay-at-home mom or a work from home mom, you pour everything into your kids and they just are like, well, duh, you're mom. Like that's your job or whatever.
Mhm.
And which is a whole nother conversation that I have with my kids. I'm like, well, maid is not mom. Okay, that's not the same, right?
Maid, chef,
Right.
laundromat.
Like, I'm supposed to be wisdom and value for you. So learning that it's okay to have other things, and kids, and this is, we did talk about this first part, they will model what you do. So if you have all these dreams and all of these aspirations and you just buried them, and then you just almost resent your kids or your husband because you're
Mhm.
not pursuing them, that's not their fault. It's
Mhm.
not. It's your perception on what that would have taken to get those. And it
Mhm.
could have been you said, like, if you were going to be a singer or an actress, well, I can't do those things because, I had to raise my kids. But what was that going to give you? Was there something else you could have done to receive the same kind of feeling or progress or validation in that sense? So I think what happens is we put all this, like, I gave up all this stuff for you and you're not even appreciative. It's not that they're not appreciative, but it's not their job every day, all day to be like, Mom, you're so great. Oh my gosh, Mom, I have the best mom. Oh my gosh, Mom, you're so great. You're so awesome. You're so beautiful. First of all, if they did that, it wouldn't be sincere and you wouldn't receive it anyway. Second of
Mhm.
all, they just know if you've made them safe in a loving condition unconditional way, they don't feel like they have to always say stuff to you. Now
Mhm.
you teach your kids gratitude and that,
Sure.
but like all day every day, like that's like what a manipulative, like um abusive relationship does, and you don't want
Yep.
that, right?
Nope.
And so it's like,
Mhm.
so you add value to them because it's going to add value to them. It's that unconditional. It's like, I do this to you because I love you, not because I'm expecting a thanks. It's
Something
kind of
back,
like,
right?
it's the horse trading mentality. Like if you're only doing it to get money back, like that's the same. Like if you're only helping your kids because you want that validation, that's the same thing.
Right.
Now, again, gratitude's for another day because you want to teach your kids to be gratitude and give compliments and things like that. But
Mhm.
again, if they're not giving it to you and you're feeling really unfulfilled and usually that's what it is. It's you're feeling unfulfilled. So then you
Right.
feel valued. Have a conversation with your spouse first and foremost, because I believe that the marriage, I know there's some single parents on here, but if you do have a
Sure.
spouse, connect with them and say, I'm feeling really like undervalued, and talk with them and be like, am I putting too much on the kids? Like, what
Mhm.
else could I contribute to the community, to the church? Could I put out a podcast? Could I write a blog? Could I make an Etsy store or whatever it is, that skill set
Mhm.
that you want? Could I go back to school and be a nurse and just do it part time, like when the kids are
Mhm.
whatever? Like wherever you're feeling devalued, it's not your kid's job, and I'll be pretty blunt with this. It's not their job to make you feel valued, and it's not their
Mhm.
job to make you feel fulfilled, and it's not their job to make you feel happy.
It's
Like
not their
it's
job to make you feel anything, just
no,
saying.
no. And really it's like if you are feeling undervalued, then you probably haven't been actually giving the value and the wisdom. And I'll just be pretty
Ooh,
blunt with that. Because
that's
when you give value and you really are there for them and
huh.
feel that sincerity, it'll come back to you. It
Mhm.
really does. I mean, it's law of reciprocity. And when you're actually, when you're giving that, it's kind of like if you give enough, like you're going to get what you want out of it. And it's the
Mhm.
same thing with kids. When we
Mhm.
actually give of ourselves, and I'm not saying the laundry, the dishes, the cooking and cleaning, those are things that, like, no, and you need to have self-care. That's another
Mhm.
thing. You probably haven't had enough self-care of intuition of like what it takes to be the best human and the best parent for your child. And that takes work, and you have to take the time, and it's a discipline. It is a discipline to take that time away from your kids and say, I am going to do XYZ to make myself better. It's not
Mhm.
selfish. It's a discipline. It's actually
Yeah.
selfless because you're becoming better for them.
Well, and that goes back to leadership starts with us, which is where we
Yep.
started our whole conversation today. And
Mhm.
I full disclosure for folks listening, I'm actually not a parent. Yes, I know. I launched Parent Tween Connection and I'm not the parent. Many folks are very shocked by that. And they asked me, why did you do this? And I was like, because I was the teenager, because I was the one that had that challenging relationship with my mom. And I can see how I wish on both parts we could have handled things differently.
Right.
Right. But one of the things that I am grateful to my husband for is he does that very thing. Like when you said, talk to your spouse about, like, hey, if I'm feeling undervalued or I'm feeling unfulfilled, I didn't even have to get to that point because he knows that music is my avocation. It's what my degree is in, but it's my avocation at this point. I'm in a highly competitive chapter of an international singing organization. And Tuesday nights are rehearsal night. Like that is inviolate. End of story. I don't meet with clients. I roll my butt back in at midnight sometimes after we go out after rehearsal. And that's just the way that it is. And he has a little bit more colorful way of saying the fact that I'm not a very happy person if I don't have music in my life.
Yeah.
And so I can hear some folks going, okay, but you're not a mom. You don't get it. You're right. I don't get that aspect of it. But I watch my best friend who is not only a single parent, but a solo parent. Her husband passed away very unexpectedly
Mhm.
during COVID, not COVID specific, but
Right.
all of a sudden she had 9 and 11-year-old boys at home and
Mm.
she was the only parent that they had. And granted, it was COVID, so we weren't rehearsing because it's not like singing was a condoned activity at the
Right.
time, right? But like
Right.
ever since then, once we started getting back into rehearsals and whatnot, like one of the kiddos, she didn't feel comfortable leaving him home by himself. And his older brother had something else that he had to do on the same night that we had rehearsals. So guess what? Kiddo came to rehearsal,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and at this point, they're old enough to stay home alone or stay, whatever. But they know that Tuesday night is mom's night, and that's just what it is. To the point that like one of them is responsible for cooking dinner on Tuesdays a lot of times
Yep.
because that's what mom needs to fill her cup so that she can go back to being the best mom that she can be. So like I've
Right.
watched it happen where she didn't even have a partner. She didn't even have a
Right.
co-parent
Right.
who could take the kids off of her hands every other weekend or,
Right.
how many, parenting agreements are. So I'm going to put it out there that like, no, I don't get it, but I've watched somebody in the
Right.
most unfortunate of circumstances take that time for themselves and
Right.
show up as a fantastic parent.
Exactly. And here's the reality. And again, I'm pointing my finger here. A lot of it's control.
Mhm.
And when we raise these humans, and I know for me it was because I didn't want to hire a nanny or I didn't want to hire a babysitter. What would people think? And oh my gosh, and like, are they going to do the right thing? And I want to be the dominant voice in my kid's life and all these things. And can I trust them? And there's definitely issues when you're hiring somebody to take care of your kids or
Sure.
whatever. Or if you have to find somebody, like if you know what, even if it's not about a career choice or anything like that, if it's like going and enjoying a hobby like that, and then we feel guilt, like I can't do that because it's just a hobby and it's like, not validated or whatever. And it's sitting back and saying, first of all, are you people pleasing?
Mhm.
Women are kind of notorious for people pleasing at some level.
Sure.
And looking at it like control, like, are you trusting your spouse or the grandma, the grandparent, the babysitter, the aunt, the uncle to take your kids for a night and make sure they brush their teeth and get to bed on time? And they're probably going to do none of those things. And are they going to survive and live and be great? Yes, they are. Like
Mhm.
people know, like when my dad watches my kids and he's great, but like I don't need to leave him rules. He's going to do what he's going to do and they love him. And as long as they're safe, and I just have to be like, okay, they get into everything. You can't, like, you have to have eyes on them at all times, but like at the end of the day, I trust them and it's
Mhm.
relinquishing that trust. And again, with that trust is our identity. But what if somebody else can do it? What if somebody else can parent my child or do that better than me, which they can't, but with the lies we tell ourselves, right? So I
Absolutely.
have to hold this control. Or what if I do this in the whole house? My girls still are used to me being home all the, like my first three, because there's a gap between our third and fourth. And my first three, I worked from home only in the nooks and crannies of their time. I very rarely hired a babysitter to do anything. I figured it out, late nights, nap time, those type of thing. I was always there when they came home from school. Now, this year, we hired a nanny to come in part-time. And so I'm not there all the time. Now, I'm still there most of the time, but I asked my husband, I'm like, you didn't show up till 6 o'clock, but I came home at 4:30 and I'm still the one that's getting in trouble for not being home enough or whatever. And he said, because you've always been the one,
Mhm.
and you've always been the one. And that doesn't mean, I need to hold resentment to my husband or I need to whatever. It's accepting how my kids see it. And again, being
Sure.
open with them. And it's not about me. It's what they see and what they need to feel safe and loved. But if they feel safe and loved and it's just about a needy, something else, that's another issue, and a level of that. And telling my kids, I mean, we're a family vision. So it's like, you guys want these things for our family. Daddy and I have to work. So we have to give up some time, and we need to trust that you're going to make, good choices and good decisions when we're not
Sure.
here, all of those things, but we bring them in on it. We don't just, it's not just mommy said, and you need to do this and we have to pay the bills. And like, no, we say it, but and a lot of times in our family's humor and vacations, I'm like, you guys want these great things, but like, where
They
do they
don't
come
grow on trees.
from? Right? Yeah. So, I mean, just those little nuances of like, I really do believe, trusting, like we talked about trusting the process and relinquishing control, being there again enough that you can follow that, but separating yourself enough to give yourself identity, because your kids will notice. My daughter, when I started doing this summer, and when I would go away to the office and do my stuff and I'd come home, she's like, Mom, you're way happier. Like, you are way happier when you have your time away. And I'm like, okay, like she noticed that. So when I say like, I need to go to the office, she's like, okay, I'll watch the timings. I'll do this. Like, she has an understanding from it because she knows she wants mom to be happy. Your kids want you to be happy. They really do. And again, if
Well,
you're at that
there's
level where you're doing everything for them, then that's not healthy either.
I mean, there's truth to the old adage of happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
Which I have revised in my partnership to happy spouse, happy house.
Right.
And that's not to say that we kowtow, right?
Right.
But that like my husband knows I'm a happier human when I have music in my life.
Yeah.
I know that he's a happier human when he hits the gym regularly. To be fair, aren't we all? But
Yes.
when when he's
Yes.
playing hockey and when he's hanging out
Right.
with the guys, like he's my best friend. I'm his best friend. At least I
Yeah.
think I am. But like I'm not a dude. Like I'm not going to engage with him in that same manner. Nor is
Yep.
he a chick. Is he? He's not going to engage. Like we need those other outlets.
Yep.
And when we honor the other, whether it's our partner or our kids, the people that we love, of like, look, go do your thing. Like I can't be your be all end all for anyone, anywhere, ever.
Right,
So
exactly. And you show that to your kids by doing it. Again, it's goes back to the
exactly.
first one. It's modeling. It's showing your kids that you can have a life outside of it, and that doesn't devalue your value in the home or your relationship with your kids. It actually makes it
Absolutely.
more valuable because they're going to be like, oh yeah, like mom's lived a life and she's doing these things and she's a real human, and it humanizes you as a
Mhm.
parent, especially with
It
tweens and
totally
teens,
does.
because they're like, oh, and if you are a mom who you choose to stay at home, it's not you're just a stay at mom. I'm not saying that. Go for a walk. Like, what are the hobbies? There has to be other things other than a
Hmm.
mom. Do you love learning mom stuff? And you need to teach that to other moms. That's a great aspect. I'm not that way. I'm
Absolutely.
not the like preschool parent that's playing with Play-Doh and stuff. I love my kids and I play with them. I do, but like there are things that are like mind numbing for me. And so it's like, and
Mhm.
that's okay. And for a long time, I thought that wasn't. I thought I had to be the certain because I wanted to be a stay at home mom, but I was not the typical stay at home mom. I'd see these other moms that were getting together and doing these like play date things. And I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, that's just not me. And like, I'm not
Sure.
sure. And so it's like, know your value of what you are and like, accept that is in your servanthood. It's knowing who you are and how
Hmm.
you can serve your kids and how you can do it in the best manner, not making it about you, but it's like not making it about you, but making it about you enough to know how you can serve them,
Sure.
love them, and know them. We talked about in the first one, when you know them, like how they feel loved, how they feel accepted, how they feel understood,
Hmm.
then that becomes easy. Because there's enough parenting that's hard. Do the stuff that makes it easy. And it's
Absolutely.
knowing those things.
Right. We could talk all day, but I recognize that not everybody has all day to listen to us talk.
But yeah,
But
we should wrap it up.
my hope is that folks who are tuning into the recordings and the replays at any time down the road have gotten some good value out of this. And so I just want to make sure that we wrap up with making sure that the members of Parent Tween Village know how they can reach out to you, and if they have questions, what's the best way for them to find you and potentially find support through you and your servanthood as a coach and speaker and mentor and all the things.
So Tabatha Thorell on Facebook, you can personally message me. I'm Tab Thorell on Instagram, and I think Coach Tab on TikTok. I'm tabthorell.com. That's where like my website is. That's where all my free resources are housed. And so, like I said, I've been a coach for over 16 years. And so I've done everything from fitness to personal development, relationships, and all of our free resources are on there. I also have my own podcast called What Went Wrong? The Untold Stories of Bouncing Back from Failure. And so if you're someone who really, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, these stories are incredible. I mean, we're talking like people who struggled with addictions or like stroke and how they came back from it. Obviously entrepreneurial success of like bankruptcy and then back up into, you know, the multi-millions and different things like that. So just stories of inspiration. And so it's just kind of fun. It's a different take. It's really looking at people's failures as a blessing. So you can look at your own, just like parenting failures. They're really a blessing if you can look at them that way.
Right.
So that's on all podcast channels and YouTube. Go check our YouTube views out. We just started this year, so just getting kind of some traction on that. And then my husband, this would interest parents. We're actually launching a program where we help, what it's called the Family Legacy Project. And what we want to do is we want to help families buy their first income property, but also teach their kids and teach the families how they can create legacy wealth and withstand beyond generations. So it doesn't just end with the parent that's like hustle and grinding right now, so that they can build that wealth. We do it through income properties, but we also bring other experts of like, you know, financial advisors, tax, money incentive, like all this, all whole bunch of stuff. But really, inevitably, if you're someone who's like, man, I've always wanted to buy an income property, or I want to teach my kids of how all this stuff works and they just don't listen, or we want to be a family unit on that, we're going to get all these people together and really build really family legacy wealth, because I think entrepreneurship can really withstand that. So those are just kind of some of our fun projects. You can always message me about any of those.
Awesome. That's fantastic. All right. Well, tabthorell.com it sounds like is the central place to go for folks to find all the other places. So thank you so much. And we'll be over and out.
All right. Thanks, Clarissa.